After all, the consciousness of the two is in this supernatural body. A battle for physical legitimacy ensued, and the sea and mountain beams at the moment. His expression was surprisingly dignified. This child's primordial spirit can't come back. It can only be up to his own will. Then he looked worriedly at the choked neck. The Saturday of the terrier is sunny. Remind him not to die. You are his spear in this real world. If you're gone, if you love this kid, you will definitely die. Witnesses of the past and present who have survived for endless years. Reality again. He will witness the end of the three-stitch method, or rise again at this moment. With Duan Xing love this disease. The two consciousnesses within the supernatural power are constantly intertwining. That's satisfying out of the microvision. It even affects the real world. The Emperor's seamount. Jinzi immediately cast his lust. Meddle in the battle between the two for the body and the law. However, its magic is in contact with the fork of the supernatural power. It actually passed directly through this thing. Haishan Liao felt a little tricky. It's as if you're not in the real world. He couldn't reach it for a short time. Now we can only hope that Saturday will be able to hold on. He and Duan Xinglian are each other's spears in this world. If one of them dies, then in this world, I am afraid that there is no three true methods. Meanwhile, in that grove, a smile on Bai Liyuan's face, more and more kind. He could feel it. Duan Xinglian's natal supernatural powers are very compatible with him. And there has always been a saying in the world of supernatural powers. Causality. Avatars can only be attracted by a powerful fate. Let's talk about it. Bai Liyuan's consciousness began to twist and divide violently. Finally, behind his consciousness, Pan Nanjun emerged. Sui Yuan scorched the consciousness of the swelling and others. Bailey Yuan's cheerful ridicule and so on. Even if you are the original owner of this supernatural power. But it's just a short-lived you. How can it be worthy of the walls of our 6 lives and 5 lives? Your so-called obsession is not worth mentioning at all. Disperse, as everyone else has lived. Lost in time. This is the only end for you. And it was in Duan Xinglian's consciousness. A fork in the road to complete extinction. In some void not far from here. The figure of the hardware witness is realistic again. Every time he appears. All represent. There will be something big going on that will turn the world of supernatural powers upside down. This time he will witness the end of the three-stitch method. Or rise again. Meanwhile, the consciousness of the broken chain began to panic. Then a biting chill hit. It made its drowsy consciousness wake up a little. Broken Star Chain slowly opened his eyes. Right now, his memory is a little vague. It's like the blur you feel when you wake up from a dream. It was as if he was back to the river. But soon he remembered. I never left the river at all. Gradually, he remembered more. I seem to have had a long, long dream. In the dream, he was rescued ashore by a group of strangers. Those people aren't like Mom and Dad. I dislike my own faults. They are their own important family. This is the most beautiful dream that Duan Xinglian has ever dreamed of. But then they were killed. And there is nothing you can do about it. Or even many years later. The sister who has been taking care of him. He also died at the hands of his strange superpowers. This is a dream that Duan Xinglian has dreamed of sin. But luckily, it's just a dream. Luckily, it's all fake. Luckily, I'm the only one who will die. In the cold darkness, Duan Xinglian hugged his thin body tightly. Fall into the endless darkness. But suddenly he seemed to sense something. Sideways glance forgot to forget. It was an old man he had never seen before. And this old man's hand. But it made him feel extremely familiar. That's a mask. Let the walls of your 6 lives and 5 lives. How can you be worthy of me? All living beings in the world. This is definitely the same as the sun and the moon. The most shocking night. There is not a single text in the empty article, but it was enough to bring tears to your eyes. There are no explosive battles. There is no such thing as a pleasing mouth. It's about inheritance. Heart-shattering consciousness at this moment. sink into the endless darkness. However, a figure appeared, but it brought him a beam of light. This is an old man. Duan Xinglian didn't know this person, but he remembered the mask in the man's hand. Followed by, he saw the story of the old man in the mask. He is a mortal tribe. They sacrificed to the gods with living people, not with the old man. Wear a mask. It's like the child who was sacrificed. Flee the tribe with him. But the old man himself was seriously injured. The sun is setting. The old man's fire of life is extinguished. However, this is the spark. But it ignited the chivalrous heart of the young man. Spring goes and autumn comes. The teenager grew up. He inherited the old man's sword and the mask. The boy was still immortal. But when he saw the weak being in the mountains, when the jackal is hunting, he resolutely chose to draw his sword. He is not afraid of wolves, even if it is sacrificed for righteousness. At this moment, the knife broke. But it has always been eternal. He can pass all the way down the road. With this will, the weak can also show infinite strength. It is also possible to rely on this will to help disasters and disasters. The weak can also stand up to the sky. It can also raise the inheritance of this force of sex and courage. They are not unafraid of death. It's just in their hearts. There is something more important than life. The mask is just a carrier. What is truly inherited is the will of each person's heart. He crossed the river of time. It is passed down from generation to generation. Endless, yet ridiculously. The law-abiding and the nirvana. They all think that they are the masters of this world. They can move mountains and reclaim the sea. It can easily decide the life and death of a dynasty. But they ignore the history of mortal construction. Only mortals can change the future. If all the future would be history, that moves history forward. Definitely. Not the juggernaut who has great power. Rather, it is every insignificant being that instigates the wings. Just like that mask. He was a mortal being, but it carries this weak and no glimmer. But it is endlessly chivalrous. With a lamp out of the light. Eventually, all lights will be clear. Masks do not represent justice. Nor will courage be given. Just the moment you put on this mask, you'll know what you're going to do. Passed down through thousands of generations. Eventually, the mask came to the engine of the broken chain. Cause and effect are truly wonderful. The old man of the mortal tribe. I saw a picture of the future through the Manhwa holy tower. He is a god of Duan Xinglian. And at this moment, under this mask, in the end, the god in his heart. But because of this mask, he was reborn. The moment he took the mask, Duan Xinglian's consciousness suddenly sobered up. At this moment, he seemed to understand something. A strong fate attracts cause and effect. But the spark can start a prairie fire. The fate of countless small collections. It is infinite cause and effect. It's the people of the here and now. In an instant, Duan Xinglian's consciousness began to condense. Distortion followed. Ordinary figures emerged behind him. This is the chivalry of everything carried inside the mask. They are small but endless. Let the walls of your 6 lives and 5 lives. How can it be worthy of my life? All living beings in the world. The surging energy came out dangerously. The one who grabbed Saturday Qing's arm. Shangsheng was pinched and exploded. As Bai Liyuan's consciousness dissipated, this confrontation between the body and the law has finally come to an end. Meanwhile, in a grove of small trees, the body of Bai Liyuan, who was sitting here, woke up. Immediately afterward, a wave of energy struck from within it. He spoke with a gloomy expression. Genshin Impact and Natal One have been taken back. It's weird. Causality supernatural powers are attracted to powerful causality. Did that kid have any special opportunity? This is a man who has survived for an endless period of time. He witnessed the history of the supernatural world. But the time slice that he recorded will become the Valley of Dreams. It is also known as Wanya very old by the world. At this moment, as Bai Liyuan's consciousness dissipated, segment, Star Love has completely taken back control of her natal supernatural powers. He glanced sideways at the eroded flesh within, without the slightest hesitation. Shoot it out with one palm. However, at the moment when this palm was approaching, the selfless incarnation in the flesh decisively chose to flee. With the departure of Bailey Yuan, Duan Xinglian opened his eyes violently. His primordial spirit had finally returned from the realm of that dream. The sea and mountain birds on the side saw this, and there was a compliment in their eyes. He was already done. If Saturday Qing's head is pinched off, he was going to take it back again. It's just that the sister and brother are fine. Then he would be able to save trouble. On the other hand, the heart is broken. He returned from the Manhwa holy building. I forgot what I had been through. He stared blankly at the mask in his hand. He knew it. I forgot something important. He tried to remember, but the brain is blank. And yet at this moment, from the selfless incarnation that escaped from Feng Kai's sentence, Bai Liyuan's voice came out, "Don't force yourself. When you go back, you should eat and drink. Let's take care of ourselves before we meet next time. Don't die for a moment." Originally, I was still at a loss. His eyes began to grow deep and cold, though he has forgotten much. But that anger is hidden. I can really feel the hatred for him. I kept warning myself in my head, do not remove everything that the person in front of you represents. No one can get rid of that kind of thing. Palms of great power. With that, the boy put on the mask in his hand. He didn't know why. Just by a hint of that dark feeling. Calm voices came from under the mask from you and me. 3 true certainly. We'll see you in the future. Maybe not just the future. At this moment, in the 100 miles away from here, a rare flash of fear flashed across Benny's face. Seeing that the broken boy finished loading 13 seamounts. Impatiently, he said, "Get out." Fingertips are broken, turned into dust. Meanwhile, in some void not far from here, the witnesses, ancient and modern, closed the book in their hands. The man of the quaint mask. A majestic voice was heard. To witness this moment, it also officially became the Manhwa. There must have been a new fruit of dreams born there, too. What I see today. Whether it can be an opportunity to influence that outcome, I will continue to witness it. The year goes back to 530 AD. With the complete unfolding of the Manhwa building, the festival within the tribe also came to a climax. Akiko show standing on a high place. He spoke to the years beside him. It's worth the hard work. Or even a blockade area. Sui Yuan did not explain. Still looked submissive. And said that the ancestors criticized it. The ancestors were speechless. Quietly looked at the thing standing beside the boy. He knew it. That's the remnants of the time when you didn't even extinguish your hand. This moment. The festival within the mortal tribe is nearing its end. People's emotions have also climbed to the top. Because next up is the blood-stained gods. With it all coming to an end, the immortal monarch jumped up and wanted to float away. When he passed away, he said that the immortal monarch was leaving, whether it is necessary to send it under the phase. But Zhang Mingzi forgot about this person with a little deep meaning. At a glance, he had already guessed a lot. So he personally opened his mouth and said far away. The battle of cause and effect. On the way back, Jiang Tong repeatedly asked himself to become a horse. Let the master whip him away, saying, "Is there no problem with the education of these 3 stitches? The moon flies. Tempus fugit. Time flies from the past to the future. His trajectory has long been doomed to be irreversible. Life will age and die as he is gone. But the will must be eternal. It's all over now." The sky inside the city of Shanghai. Dozens of punishment seekers with handicap are busy. Rushing around, they want to eliminate them one by one. Ordinary people's memories of this battle. And in the center of this battlefield, Song Ping and Ingning knelt here. There was silence for a long time. There are so many innocent people buried here, and teammates who fight with them. And the other side. After making sure everything is okay, Duan Xinglian and his party embarked on the way home. Haishan, who was walking in the forefront, complained dissatisfiedly. Next time there will be this again. I'm not coming back. You have to go around with yourself. However, looking back, I found out. The sister and brother are like no one else. Tired together. This made Haishin this century-old single dog. The anger is not light. I can't help my father in my heart. When did the owner of this island be so aggrieved? I really can't stay here for a moment. That's when it happened. The broken heart chain behind him suddenly stopped him, and claimed that he had met Patriarch Haogwang before. Seeing this, Haishin couldn't walk at this moment, hurriedly dodged and detoured. Thereupon, Duan Xinglian began to talk about his love through the same month, with the 1911 Haogwang Zushi, something that made a connection, and the seamount at that time was also present. You should know about it. Can the sea? It's as if I don't have any impression of it. So Duan Xinglian told him everything in detail. Meanwhile, Bailey Yuan carried a small pebble on his back and prepared. Return to the Gate of the Nine Realms. And that is in a different period of the mini Shurxian. Guardians. Then begin to look for the inner pass from the future. The ancient holy places mentioned in consciousness. The sun and the moon are like a shuttle. Tempus fugit. The trajectory of the history of time is clear. Let's go back to 1911 AD. The third Dharma house at the moment is still the only one who can't see the four masters and apprentices in the past. Stop at a small dirt bag at the back of the mountain. This is the tomb of Ma Zhaoji, the 217th master of the Three Truths method. The three disciples, Zhao Li, came to worship the old man. It's just one of them. Only Huang Ergu is here in real life. The plump second senior brother back then. At the moment, it has sold a lot of masters. After that, he went back to inherit the family business. Now he has a wife and children. It's a pity that my son doesn't have the qualifications to seek the law. And the senior sister Miao Qingqing is currently in the Qianji tube. His cultivation has been growing steadily over the years. And Gao Haogwang, who believes in science, just silently stared at the master's grave owner. What a strange force in his opinion. What is in the spirit of heaven is nonsense. I never thought about it, but it attracted the remains of my brothers and sisters. After the big wall knocks around, Gao Haogwang walked to the master's present. Said, "Actually, I'm quite envious of the old man, the way you died." Obviously, chatting about people, he left. Could this be the righteousness of the beast? It's over, and it's another season of big wall knocks. Gao Haogwang scratched his head. Go on. Just then. If only you could walk a second or two late. Because he hasn't answered the old man's question yet. I vaguely remember that day. Ma Zhao drank a little wine as usual. Suddenly, he looked sideways at Gao Haogwang and asked, "Forcibly leads you down this path of disloyalty. Will there be a little bit of grudge as a teacher?" At that time, Gao Haogwang pointed out that it was the master's sin. And there was no answer. But he didn't know it after that. The master could no longer hear the answer from his mouth. Ma Zhao's life was bumpy. There are no supreme prodigies. There is no amazing talent. Also save the prodigy of the sect from annihilation. Aftermath are all running for the inheritance of the three chastity method. He simply lived up to the wishes of his brothers and sisters. The three-needle method has been passed down. Watching the disciples become talented one by one is the biggest expectation of the old man in his life. Now he saw the end of his life. Is the best ending for the old man. If there are regrets, maybe it's still that burnout. A man who aspires to science. The guilt of bringing this strange power into the world of chaotic gods. Gao Haogwang did not answer this question, just paid a deep attention to the master. Look at the sparrows, though small. But there is a zombie hidden inside him. This thing is the embodiment of a person who was a seeker of the Dharma during his lifetime, born with a strange and unpredictable talent. Under the prodigy, with Gao Haogwang and others worshipping the master. The brothers also chatted with each other about the current situation. After that, it's time to say goodbye. Before leaving, Gao Haogwang reminded Huang Erwu. The battle of cause and effect is about to begin. Let him take care of him. He knew that the second senior brother had something to hide from them. But since the second senior brother didn't want to say it, he didn't choose to ask either. And the master explained lightly, and he was in the 1,000-chicken pavilion right now. He didn't have to worry too much. With a thud, there were two soft sounds. The incarnation of the siblings was shattered. Then it turned into two puppets. This is the 1,000-mile organ sheath of the 1,000-machine tube. Through him, people's consciousness can be deoriented. Wait until the two of them leave. Huang Ergua also waved his hand to say goodbye to his master. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away in a jungle, Gao Haoguang's consciousness returned to the ontology. The tiger god behind him saw this. How about killing the wolf and looking for the dragon? The 1,000-mile mechanism of the 1,000-machine tube prized the cow. Since you used it, then make amends with your flesh and blood. Pay the price for your desires. Stupid little brother. High consumption with seamounts. The two tacitly ignored it. This made the tiger god very angry. I saw one of his hungry tigers crying and finishing his meal. Just give Hui's eyes pants. A chill hits. The scene was very awkward for a while. And in this embarrassment stops. Wu Dashin felt aggrieved again. I thought to myself about these three real boys. It must be because the meat doesn't grow. Desire for the words, little brother, and suffer from Dafa. But the camp thieves are too bad after a bit of fun. The crowd began to walk deeper into the forest. They were there to find. It was planted with 1,000 caddies of the French style of wiping the raw mark. However, it is coincidental according to the display of the smearing seal. The French was right above their heads right now. A few people looked at it. As far as the eye could see, stood a small sparrow. Under their gaze, the sparrow's body began to tremble. Immediately after that, the body suddenly bursts. A small figure was revealed. This is the goal of their journey. Seeing his whereabouts revealed, the mage decisively chose to flee. But this time he had to face it. They are all strong aspirants among the young generation of the three major factions. How could he let him escape easily? Wu Dashin directly raised his hand to exchange for 2,000 shot puppets. Stop the mage. Facing the oncoming 2 seasons of heavy punches, the mage had no choice but to fight back. And no matter how much he ignored it, none of them can break the obstacle of 1,000 blows puppet. In a hurry, he also took 2 sentences solidly. The joint artistic conception of the puppet came from a distance like a mountain. The path that left his body uncontrollable flew out. And yet at this moment, the sea and mountain that followed were already approaching. I saw his small mouth. The twigs and paper cranes flew out of their sleeves. The next moment, the paper crane seems to have turned into a living creature without a swordsman. Directly attack the harem towards the mage. The mage is loyal and harmful, but now there is no way to avoid it. Although he has tried his best to twist into the empty body, but he still had both legs cut off. Feel the giant coming from your legs. The mage couldn't help but curse angrily in his heart. The next second, his cheeks suddenly swelled exaggeratedly. The whole table opened its mouth and spat out a few children. Without the slightest hesitation, throw the children in all directions. The tiger god behind him realized that these children are still alive. I can't help but denounce the mage's meanness. Haishin glanced sideways. He muttered whether to save or not to save. I hate the feeling of being led. Think about it. Anyway, the little brother of the sea and mountains can also clean it up. Then he turned and chased after the child. The mage who succeeded in his treacherous plan was proud in his heart. But he was stopped by a figure in front of him. And this gray-haired boy. He snorted at him very arrogantly. The mage was furious. This kid is obviously a lot weaker than the previous 2. How dare you be so arrogant? So he directly exerted his talent and supernatural powers. And the effect of this supernatural power, it means that you can change the size of your body at will. Gao Haoguang's sword also pulled out the method in the swordsman. The weapon sprayed with flames from the hilt. The mystery condensed into a thick blade. After everything is done, the gigantic mage is also present in the realm. At the same time as its drama commander struck, Gao Haoguang calmly dodged and retreated. Unexpectedly, the mage lifted a boulder directly from the ground, outweit towards Gao Haoguang. In this regard, Hui Tsai is just a giant sword that will be carried on his shoulder, horizontal in front of you. Feel his heavy sword cut through the boulder, shattered in an instant. And the ritual in front of the boulder is seen here. He shouted 3 small words in his mouth. The next moment, his huge figure became enchanted. Then he shrunk the board, deftly weave between the crevices of the boulders. When he appeared, he had already come behind Gao Haoguang. Seeing that this person did not notice, the mage picked it up again, sucking blood towards Gao Haoguang's head. However, it is at the fork in the road. Gao Haoguang turned around sharply, reach out to grab the mage in his hand. Moments of crisis. The mage hurriedly shouted a few big words. The next moment, his figure began to skyrocket, broke free from Gao Haoguang's control. However, a sword of spiritual power came from the top of his head, but it made his hair stand on end. He should have begged for mercy. I heard the cold voice of the gray-haired boy. Your bow is. Say the name of the trick. Handong Sanjun broke the mystery and eliminated the letter sword. The voice fell. The great sword hanging over the mage's head forbids it from falling. The mage's skull was split in half. The battle of cause and effect is about to begin. Pan Nanjun gathered a number of mages, carefully laid out for the advent of Manyo Shursen, in the dense forest at this moment. At the same time that Gao Haoguang finished killing the mage. Seamount. The two of them also recovered the sea bucket that had been thrown out earlier. Several people speculated. This should be the law. The division was snatched from the town down the mountain. So the group went down the mountain, by Gao Haoguang and Haishan, responsible for the return of those sea barrels, and the tiger god. Then go to the local extraordinary trading area to claim the reward. These were the few strong doors at that time. To motivate the seekers. A bounty jointly funded by the elimination of the Nirvana Master. Most of the rewards are in precious metals, or make clothes. Guaranteed materials are the mainstay, and sometimes real estate. While a few people were enjoying the joy of harvesting. Measure a blessing from the cuff of the tiger god. This is the Senkakin Senriko note. And the message came formally and subtly. He claimed that the Senkakin had found the line of the wood. Let a few people return immediately. Gao Haoguang was always calm along the way. See this for the seamounts? He asked with a slight difference. I thought you would. There will be clues that will change history. And feel excited. But Gao Haoguang said, this has nothing to do with his desire to change history. The head has nothing to do with it, but he wants to make himself calmer. Objectively understand the matter of changing history. According to the same day of the adoption of the reading order, I learned from Duan Xinglian 100 years later. His future. It will inevitably involve the world related to the eye. So Gao Haoguang was worried. Never let what he is doing now become a star breaker practice in the future, and the cause of the tragedy of the 3 truths. Therefore, he must be cautious and cautious. Then he mentioned it to the crowd. And being named Laplace. That was nearly 100 years ago. There was a French mathematician named Laplace, presented by the wise men of fantasy, or rather, creatures. Suppose the creature knows a certain moment, all the forces of natural motion, and the material position of all natural compositions. These can also be analyzed. That creature. You can have a clear insight into the past and the future. Haishan listened and fell into thought. He thinks this statement is both disastrous and hopeless. If it is true, it can be deduced to determine the future. That's what I am. It's just a puppet that is manipulated. Everything is predestined. What we do is in vain. What else is there to talk about changing the future? In the end, the seamount was changed and discussed. It's good that it's just a fantasy creature. Let this be aside. The spirit of the martial god who made it to win was lifted. He was glad that he was not a wise man. If you even know your own future. So what's going on? You can't experience the novelty in a lifetime. Only boredom and boredom remain. However, Gao Haoguang thought. Although at the moment they are not fighting this methods of medication, but that doesn't mean the future isn't possible. After all, the future of that love in the mouth, filled with so much incredible. I can't say what they're talking about now. The future man has long been solved, that can fight against this mastery of time and space. The material goblin stuff must be extremely interesting. Just a few people talking. A ticket inspector walks in from the front of the carriage. Several outstanding people from famous families saw this. Immediately skillfully jumped off the train. A few tosses and turns. The group finally came to this secret. Outside the city. At that time, it was one of the 21 strong gates of the 1,000-machine pavilion. Under the leadership of the Tiger God, the group easily walked into the mountain gate. They were greeted by the master of the Tiger God, Subtle, and Gao Haoguang's senior sister Miao Qingqing. There are only sea and mountain beams. The cat bear that automatically plays with the Tiger God by itself. After a bit of catching up, the group walked towards the depths of the 1,000-chicken pavilion. This place is the residence of the Lord of the 1,000 Bases. The third little wisdom just wanted to bow and explain. But he perceived. There was a strong sense of oppression from the owner. Several people were puzzled. Suddenly, the owner of the pavilion spoke eagerly. Now that you have returned, did you bring souvenirs to the Sprinkle family? Seeing this, the martial god laughed a few times. Gao Haoguang and the Seamount. It's a look like it's not about itself. Shinji Tublord see this. Angry scolded these small fixed points. There is no sprinkling in my heart. So angry. He summoned a large group of puppeteers. Directly towards him. The white mountain bird's brain fell with a heavy fist. It's a gentle poke at his own little girl. And in the face of Hui Zai, he just touched his head. The big head holds the skull. The gritted governor made a fuss about unfairness. But the owner of the Chinji Pavilion ignored it at all. He faded away from the puppet. Turning into the ontology, began to talk about confirmation. Not so long ago, in the vicinity of Dongting Lake, a large tomb dating back more than 1,000 years has been excavated. There, try to ask the territory of the first meeting. Their disciples were also beaten by the diggers. And the diggers is the Nine Realms Gate, known as the strongest supernatural method today. So moved the owner of the museum. I hope these few are still quite tight little masters. Let's go and investigate. Look at those thieves. What was dug up in that tomb? And what is the purpose? In addition, he specifically instructed a few people to only investigate. Don't get too involved. Because that's where it's getting extremely complicated right now. Not only did there appear a large number of Dharma seekers of various sects and sects, there may even be mages who are attracted to it. At the same time, inside the Nine Realms Gate, Pan Nanjun also gathered 7 mages. The upcoming battle of cause and effect in the layout is in front of you. This man is an immortal monarch who is admired by all people. He has both male and female Dharma bodies. Unexpectedly, he often bathed with the female disciples of the sect. At this moment, he is on the way back from the 1,000-chicken pavilion lord's mansion. Gao Haoguang just happened to meet him. The elder sister who came to find him. Miao Qingqing's little junior brother will leave again tomorrow. And I also learned from the mouth of the ancient god. The mission was dangerous. Jin Haoguang did not deny it. The senior sister asked again that it was Rob Buji's danger. Or Karachi. Because of his little junior brother. Growing up fearing these two things. The high trumpet Guangyue Weichen's Silver Queen whispered, it should be counted as 2 carats. The senior sister was so frightened that she lost her color. The mouth called the Emperor and the Queen of Earth. Aguang, are you in a hurry to go over to find the master? Later, he was seen taking out several books from his bag. In these days of the 1,000-base pavilion, Miao Qingqing found that there was a library here. There are many history books and biographies of the 1,000-base museum. So he learned from his predecessors. Noted down the master and the deeds of their 3 brothers. According to senior sister's words. 3. No one can make a real history without it. If you don't plant wheat early, How can you have steamed buns? If you don't have steamed buns, you can only pout and get angry. The sister and brother took advantage of the night to walk for a long time. I also talked a lot about the past. Before leaving, the senior sister also said that she would go to Song Haogwang tomorrow. However, the moment of walking out again, the siblings' eyes flashed. In the next moment, the two figures in the field exploded at the same time. But the sister and brother were entangled together. Don't look at Miao Qingqing, who is not visible on weekdays. But the strength shone at the moment. But not under Gao Haogwang. Index period. The two of them exchanged hands and gestures around this courtyard. It even smashed the sea and mountain for tomorrow. Steamed buns prepared for travel. Haishan is in a hurry, grumbling with a small mouth. When you two brothers and sisters fight, they fight. Why do you want to smash the steamed buns of Haishan? Too much at the same time. The siblings' rivalry has also come to an end. Feel the growth of the little junior brother. Miao gave a thumbs up slightly. Subsequently, Po's their 3 stitches ancestral master is gestured. Drift away. Before leaving, he also said, 2 carrots and should be able to carry it. Go, go, go. Gao Haogwang was speechless, looking at his hands squarely. Senior sister's intuition in the FA body shocked him. It would be nice if I could also awaken a natal supernatural power. At the same time as his wife sighed, the 3 stitches hidden in the waist suddenly lit up with the same moon. Then it slowly flew into the air. Finally, a 3-stitch imprint is formed. Gao Haogwang glanced sideways. He remembers someone saying that they were going out to fight recently. I won't be in touch for the time being. However, a scene came into view, but it made him feel a little bloody. I saw Jiang Mingzi in the same month. It shows what he looks like as a woman. And defenseless. With a clear face, he laughed and laughed. Is it hot? You damn little ghost. Take a look. This bath is when Bin Xianjun went to the West Sea to play. Moved from a piece of ruins. The ones behind are all the female disciples of this immortal June. You're welcome. Take a closer look. Give us a heart-to-heart reward. Hui Tsai resisted the curiosity to look away. He's sure. When there is a problem with the door seal of the single needle method, it was this king and 8 immortal monarchs who made it crooked. After the fun, Gao Haogwang said solemnly. He passed. In the same month, Ling saw the third person's affairs. The smile on Xinjuan's face instantly converged. He chuckled coldly. Said there was a little surprise. Go on. Then Gao Haogwang. I talked about what I had experienced before. When Xianjun asked about the appearance of this third person, Gao Haogwang showed a convenient look. Brush and ink swaying. A masterpiece followed. Born of such a painting skill. Rao is Xianjun saw it. I can't help but admire the wonderful. Then Xianjun took out an amber. He learned that Fai Tsai's trip involved a lot. So he decided to give him some means to save his life. This amber is within. There are 9 great supernatural powers and Buddhas refined by him himself. Each one is different. It's not just about attacking and defending. Let's talk about it. He casually threw it in the women's bathhouse. Gao Haogwang saw this. Is the dissatisfied Dunangang one in Ponglai? Who is going to marry so far away? But I saw Jiang Mingzi Qingxiao and said Xiao Huizai. Xiao Huizai. Have you forgotten the other identity of this immortal monarch? This immortal June is in this 1,000 Machines pavilion at the moment. As the first generation of the owner, the teenager broke into the women's bathhouse late at night. It's just to find it. A few captives left by the ancestors. At this moment, Mingzi is being picked out. He is the first generation of the owner of the 1,000 base pavilion. Gao Haogwang was slightly surprised. But there weren't too many surprises. He was curious, though. This invincible growth, immortal monarch in the world. The original intention of establishing this 1,000 base pavilion. Akiko seems to be rare for Huizai. Praise from the heart. And my Qingxiao said a few times, I am a junior real. There are many enemies. Multiple inheritances are naturally multiplied. Now I see it. 1,000 years later, the 3-needle method has fallen into such a situation. Xianjun was even more glad for his foresight. However, it is in its laid-back hospitality. Gao Haoguang changed his painting style, and Chun Sheng said, "The owner of the 1,000-base pavilion. When I die, I will become a mage. You should know that, too. After all, the Silk Road is designed by you." After hearing this, the smile on Akiko's face gradually retracted, turned to gloom. All kinds of past and helplessness come to mind. Eventually, it was reduced to a sigh. Gao Haoguang asked in a calm tone about my studio. "Will you imprison me with your own hands that day?" Will Mingzi slightly sweat hands naturally, even if this immortal monarch may not still be alive at that time. But the means will definitely be left. The apprentice grandson who trained himself. Naturally, I have to end it myself. Note that what Jiang Mingzi said here may not be. There is a millennium between the two. But he didn't say it was inevitable. After listening to Jiang Mingzi's reply, Gao Haoguang breathed a sigh of relief. Leave this kind of thing to someone else. He wasn't too reassured. Ranmeek face. Come to an end. It has never been the style of their Big Three true method. Because beyond that, they have another option. That was before both died. Destroy all the sources of nirvana, manha. After the sight of the two to end the call. The moon is already hanging high. So Gao Haoguang decided to break into this women's bathhouse. Not surprisingly, in the depths of the pool, found Nike, who left Akiko behind thousands of years ago, amber sealed by the 9 great divine powers. And yet at this moment, dozens of women's exclamations came from behind him. They were defenseless. He looked at the boy in the bath with a frightened face. Aunt Tiger showed an unsurprising expression. Said to the subtlety beside him, "Sister Meow. You see, this boy is a thief. He must be pinning his weight on us every day. But after all, Jing Miao is a person from the past." He painstakingly persuaded the brilliant child. "It's easier for your age. But I really don't dare." Gao Haoguang, who has no love in this life, just said flatly, "You guys do it." I didn't bother to explain. Tired, a kind of woman is angry and says, "Sakura thief. Your bright and upright aura. What's going on?" Gao Haoguang did not explain from beginning to end. It's the 7 words that keep repeating in my heart. Jiang Mingzi's return to the egg. It's early in the morning. Miao Qingqing and Jin Liao came to the mountain gate early in the morning. Song Sanshao only left the 1,000 Machines Pavilion. Meanwhile, in a small town on the shores of Dongting Lake, in recent days, there have been many more seekers. And in this extraordinary trading area, 2 mortals were talking about it. I heard that these punishers are all for one purpose. It just appeared here. Among these people, half of them had the same strange dream. And it's in this extraordinary trading area where they are. One of the oldest penalty seekers. I also dreamed of that strange dream 3 days ago. What you see in your dreams ignores your future self. He was at that time. Became a nirvana master who was the enemy of the prisoners. After waking up, the old man found a lot of people to solve the trouble. The final result is, it was supposed to be a prophetic dream. Other words, the old man will become the old enemy of humanity in the future. It's a prophetic dream, but not 100%. But the old man is stubborn by nature. At that time, I was not convinced. He remembered the dream very well. He looks the same as he does now. Even the shape of his beard, which he often changes, has not changed. So the old man concluded. The knowledge in the dream will happen in the next few days. So the old man gritted his teeth. Cut off his own fingers. He thinks of this injury. With their own abilities and connections. Far from being cured in a few days. Then he would be different from himself a few days later. He wanted to change the foreknowledge. However, I want to unload the fork in the road of my fingers. But by some invisible force, it was directly obliterated. Many seekers in the town, all dreaming the same thing. They dream that their future selves have become nirvana. The old man is better at foresight. But it was directly worn out by some invisible force. Later, I learned from the mouth of the great god Tongzhi. This force is called the law of cause and effect. It is specifically for those who change cause and effect. A punishment from fate. The woman was shocked when she heard this. Hurriedly asked, "The seekers who have come here recently, half of them had this prophetic dream. Does it mean that they have a high probability? Will become a nirvana master in the future?" The man's face was worried. Yes or no, he doesn't know. But those seekers are in their own dreams. Saw the same scene. Nirvanas and seekers who are difficult to technology. Bow down to a drop of blood the size of a house. The woman had palpitations when she heard this. The man next to him reminded, "Tell him to go back and remember to take the pills. Otherwise, what you see today, tomorrow you will forget about it." The thoughts of the two. It's all in this magical prophetic dream at the moment. I didn't pay attention at all. The severed hand that followed all the way behind him. A closer look reveals it. There is an eye in the palm of this hand. At the other end of this eye, a mage was silently watching everything here. Seeing the two leave, the mage said with some uncertainty, "They're going to get that out there." Speaking of this moment, doesn't it also represent the battle of cause and effect has begun? As soon as this remark came out, the companions beside him are all looking at each other. This line of 7 people. It was sent by the Pandan army to lay out the battle of cause and effect. The mage was silent for a moment. The bitter man wearing a hat on the side starred. Definitely yes. So to speak. The battle of cause and effect is the battle of the coming of our Lord. And the coming of our Lord requires 2 necessary moments. The first is to have more existence. Witness the future where it comes. That's what this hellish dream is. The more people who know, and the more part of my king comes. The world of supernatural powers that can be redeemed will be vast. That's all. The age of their nirvana. To be able to live forever. Later, Ku Liantian mentioned Pan Nanjun again. It's just that his eyes are full of fanaticism at this moment. He is a die-hard loyalist of Pan Nanjun. Even thinks that Pan Nanjun is his father. This time the dream of Jade. Thanks to the help of his own father. In order to spread out so smoothly. Chinchou on the side only felt full of feeling when he saw this. Goosebumps hurriedly told him to shut up. Then he glanced at the crowd and asked, "What do you think of the wound on Master Pan's chest?" The little man hurriedly spoke first. If it weren't for Master Pan's supernatural powers, he suppressed it. I'm afraid it will continue to expand. This is also because he himself does not take action personally. The reason why they were given the work of their group. It just doesn't give any benefit at all. It's a role model in the boss world. Chinchou Tingba is also superior. If it weren't for the one surnamed Pan, it was given by Wanya. The ability to retract Manyo's true writing at any time. The old lady immediately asked him to see whose kung fu was good. As soon as this remark came out, "I am not happy with the hardships on the side. This stinky woman dared to insult his father Pan like this. It's just looking for death." Seeing this, Chiaki was not to be outdone. That's when it happened. A gunshot rang out. The quarrel between the two. It was also interrupted by the bullet that burst into the air. And the man who shot was an old man. It is named Yu Taishan. He spoke out and persuaded the immortal club in this vicinity. There's also a great supernatural being. The two are still a little more convergent. It's not that I'm afraid of him, but nothing big happened. It's better to get into less trouble. Give a certain face. Or a different place. You as the opponent of the two. Was Yu Taishan's cold eyes. Looking at Chinchou and Kulianshan. The one who loses chooses to shut up. And at this very moment, the yellow beam at the end of the warehouse that has been closed. Siju found something. He looked at the 8 roads. Ask if you are aware of a basket. 8 Wei's slightly sweaty hands. He once ruled the gods at the tomb of Master Pan. Right now, there are 3 Dharma seekers there. It's like I'm investigating something. The great magic talisman is showing its might. You can borrow all the laws and use them to prepare for the danger. At this moment, the 3 little ones have only gone through several tosses. Finally, I came to the so-called tomb. But they don't know. The moment the group stepped into this place, Every move fell in the hands of others. After some probing, the seamount found the scent footprints inside this tomb, with traces of decrees. It's all cleaned up exceptionally clean. This made several people more and more curious. If it weren't for the reminder of a new love, they probably for a short time will not notice here. But the people of the Nine Realms Gate were so cautious. The crowd concluded that there must be a mystery in it. So the tiger god took the lead in summoning 1,000-shot puppet beads. Went to the tomb to explore. It is one that can be based on the smell. A golem looking for the enemy's tracks. However, after some searching, but it was found that there was no breath left here. Not even the living. Seeing this, Haishan also exchanged 4 blessings from the show. This is the divine rune produced by the Soul Search Village. Wherever supernatural powers have been used, this one can make the scene simple online. But this is, after all, a captive caused by others. So Haishan decided to let Gao Haoguang show it. However, Fai Tsai asked, what if no one has ever used their magical powers here? The sea and the mountain were greedy first. Then he said it was useless, unless there is a great magic power search rune. But the founding patriarchs of Sashan village are all farts. It's been hundreds of years. This kind of rare thing they don't have to worry about. Gao Haoguang listened to the catalog and pondered. Then he took out Jiang Mingzi's thorn feather hole from his waist. The 9 great divine powers lying quietly in it. It made Haishan Liao and the tiger god envious. In the eyes of the two of them looking at the nouveau riche, Gao Haoguang took out 3 truths from it. Precepts. This Dharma Fu has a brief borrowing of other magical powers, and amplify the effect of play. The weaker the thing is borrowed by this piece, the better the effect. The great god of martial arts listened to the catalog. He remembered the 3-needle precept treasure method of the 3-needle method. You can only borrow everything from reality. I never thought that I could borrow supernatural powers. However, answered. But he is a sea and mountain on the side, both from ancient times to the present day. Indeed, there have been a few people who have made good use of other people's magical powers. But someone who can play better than the original supernatural powers. There is only one. It's the one who is called the Crown, the most powerful supernatural of all times. Try the first army. Let's talk about it. He turned his gaze to Gao Haoguang beside him again. Haoguang's little brother's intuition on the legal uniform. Already tray. But it can't be exceeded. The actual limit of the military refining uniform. Of course, there is room for modification of the same character. It is even possible to play 12%. It can be used for captives of other sects. For example, this rune, the current little brother of Haoguang. At most, it can only play 60% of the annoyance. And the limit between him and the martial god is the 2nd or 3rd layer. After listening to the explanation of the seamount, Gao Haoguang recalled the feeling when I tried to practice the heavenly blood deep, with the expansion of its own jurisprudence. The flow of mana also changes with the 3 true realm treasures. Already with other factions, went to a different branch. Even if he has a complete method of returning to heaven and blood body cultivation. But this road is destined to go short. Akiko can be given to everyone's feelings. Indeed, he stood on the trunk of the whole tree. It seems to be able to refer to the person who takes the number method. But somehow, even if it's as strong as a tower, I still haven't borrowed the method of returning to heaven and blood body. A few people were talking. The 3 true Vientiane talismans have been borrowed. Seamounts. Take the lead in casting the ordinary search rune in your hand. Seat reference. A burst of brilliant light enveloped the light fruit. The light lasted for a moment. I didn't notice anything unusual here. The gang didn't even use the Dharma body when they were digging. Seeing this, Gao Haoguang no longer hesitated. Directly cast the large rune in your hand. A burst of Wangming rose. The brilliant light was like an aurora. Cover the area with a round stone tree. This scene. Barlow, who was lurking in the distance, had a question mark on his face. He was rumored to be in a small boat on Dongting Lake. Exclamation in disbelief. This is definitely a great power. Everyone was attracted by this move. Hurry up and take a closer look. And the purpose is under the action of the big ship. Scenes from previous events here begin to repeat themselves. Michio saw Sekigwai. A man with his chest hollowed out slowly crawled up, accepting the prostration of the two punishers. This is a 1,000-year-old man who has been buried by the years. Now he was awakened from his grave. You want to control the battle of cause and effect that is about to begin. Inside the tomb at this moment, under the effect of the Great Search Rune, the scene that had happened here before began to pass through. 3 saw. The two Dharma seekers respectfully woke up towards the people in Guangzhou. Then the person in the level jumped up, led the two of them into the distance. The three little minds hurriedly showed the way to hide, and follow the prodigy all the way through Barlow. A group of French people who saw this scene. I couldn't sit still. They were amazed at these tender dolls. It can lead to such a great supernatural power at the same time. It is also a festival. If you let a few people continue, I'm afraid it will cause Master Pan to be unwilling. So Fengpa proposed to cut the grass and eradicate the roots. Baluo listened to it and went to the statement office. Then he unfolded the divine power in his hand to the extreme. Seeing this, Kulianshan suddenly became interested. Claims that this is exactly his size. With that, he opened his mouth and spit out an insect catcher. Straight to the pile of corpses in the cabin. This is a hard-working talent. From fasting through this thing, it can conjure up all kinds of air bugs in the world. The insects dodge with their wings vibrating at high speed. Flew into Barlow's palm. Present tense. I have come to the mirror of 3 small ones. Fortitude approached the tail end of the worm. Shoot dozens of peaks. At the same time, the sea mountain birds are also aware of it. Turn the show for a captive. The next moment, a large blue mana field followed. Shroud 3 small ones at the same time. It will also stagnate the wind like the light universe inside. Inside a small boat on Dongting Lake. Again drew a burst of exclamations. They recognized that this was Peng Lai's natal method. In another year, the 3 little ones easily dodged the blow, but they could not sense where the enemy was. But the moisture that came to my face indicates that they are being targeted by mages. On the other side, the 5 consecutive heavenly sword strikes are effective. Once again, a lone pet was summoned. This scene can disgust Haishanliu and others. It's not that I'm afraid of it. It's this feeling of all the unknown. It made several people's hearts very uncomfortable. I saw 2 strange insects attacking head-on. Seamounts. Here, take out a handful of iron-weighing flowers from the show. I saw the tip of his hand exert force. Weigh the flower and start spinning at high speed as it unfolds. The moment the 2 strange insects touched the surface of the umbrella, was thrown out by this huge force. Before that, the martial god decided with a pinching hand. 2 sentences and 1,000 blows. The golem appeared in the path behind the monster. As expected, hold the strange insects that flew in your hands. The next moment, the puppet quickly coalesced in front of the group. At the same time, Haishan put away the flowers in his hand and gave up a position to Gao Haoguang, who was lying on the sword, with the touch of the law. From the hands of the turtle boys, the sword rabbit condensed a divine monkey. After some tossing and turning, the 2 strange insects were frozen. The bitterness in the cabin saw this and abandoned himself, complaining that Barlow's manual is too small. He also has all kinds of big insects that he can't cast. Barlow has a word of suffering. But for now, the Dharma that his hands near and far can transport. It's almost the end. These boys must be eliminated as soon as possible. In the NATO Great Divine Power suit. But the magic of everyone behind him. None of them can pass through his hands. At the same time that a few people were at a loss for what to do. At the stern of the boat, the yellow beam that is opposite to you, Taishan. He put down the pieces in his hand, slowly got up and said, Shaosheng. There is no certainty that a few people will be killed, but he's so blessed that he can dispose of it. With that, he walked slowly to the mirror. I saw that his clapping hands were hopeless, followed by the space behind him began to distort. A moment later, Huang Liang pressed his hand down violently. A majestic eyebrow passed through the hands near and far, towards the three little ones. At the moment when this energy appeared, a mountain-like sense of oppression plummeted. The three little ones were shocked in their hearts. Look around vigilantly. The sea and the mountains were opened again for defense. The next moment the weather was eclipsed. The mountain they were on. It's like being hit by invisibility. At the same time, a monstrous noise rang out. The endless mountains and forests were also under this domineering blow, turned into chicken legs. Wait until the smoke clears. The mountain in front of me is no longer there. Stop at a hole the size of a stone tree. This scene let the bitter people on the cabin were a little skeptical about life. But Huang Liang's mind seems to be all on the chess game. Yu Taishan saw his return. He praised a miraculous power. But Huang Liang looked at the chess game with his eyebrows locked. After a few moments of silence, he arched his hand towards Yu Taishan, said that Hao Miaoqi was a little unfamiliar. It is said that useless is a scholar. The scholar who can be turned into a zombie is just a casual hit. It can cause heaven and earth to die. Mountains and rivers are in turmoil. A mountain peak is even more intimate with it. The force dissipates with the fish slope. Peace has returned to the place. Wait a long time. The figure of Sanzang burst out of the lake. A dodge and then reburrowed into the grass. Right now, three small ones. I don't know where that attack came from, but it's clear that they can't afford to mess with it. It's good luck that the ontology doesn't appear. It's just a pity that the big axe. But the good thing, Gao Haoguang used video notes in advance. Some footage was recorded. Stay until night. The three little ones found another hidden place. Start watching the video carefully. Character. The two seekers in the picture. It should be the Nine Realms Gate Supreme that the first person said, and yet that's the kind of person he is. But respectfully call the person who is difficult to see as an adult. And the image of this adult is always thin. The three little ones could barely see an outline. Could this be a great supernatural mage? After all, a living person who would lie in a coffin for a long time. Gao Haoguang asked, puzzled. In this regard, the sea and mountain chats are not very clear. But he had heard his father say it. This Nine Swords Gate is not a good thing. Although I have heard of a sect that employs mages, but all of them were not fruitful. Nine Swords Gate. I thought I was known as the strongest magic method. Would be the exception. I'm afraid that in the end, I will have to suffer the consequences. That's when it happened. The man in his eyes suddenly spoke. Claimed this 1,000-year-old general. And he had a dream. A very short dream. One beauty and one cry. But just now he forgot about it. Eventually, he asked the two behind him, where is the body? Listen to you, Yin. Respectfully replied, if you say that the Qing kingdom is a place with a name. The first thing that comes to mind is Shanghai. San Xiaoji was a little stunned when he heard this. This thing was talking in his dreams just now. Now I asked for the name of the place. It's not homesick. But he heard the man in his eyes speak again. How the gift is prepared. It is like the Tao of Enlightenment has been prepared for a long time. It is called by the image of Manyo Shiro. But the matter of propagation can only be left to adults. The man in his eyes seemed satisfied. Qing laughed a few times and said that it was naturally no problem. But for now, he's going to go on a long trip first. Find a few errands to enjoy yourself. The three little ashes fell into a dead silence after hearing this. What was the raw land before? They didn't understand what the gift was. But I can probably guess. This errand. It must have been the one who attacked them during the day. A few people with lingering palpitations hurriedly sent this image back to the Thousand Machine Museum. After everything is done, three small ones on one side. Enjoy dinner. While thinking about the conversation of several people from the Nine Swords sect. Suddenly, the sea and mountains appeared, as if trying to remember something. There was a constipated look on his face. Wave a dozen pieces of paper on the intimate ground, and let it go a little further. But Haishan said it solemnly. I remember going back to the island a few years ago. I asked my father, what is the battle of cause and effect? The matchmaker knows. How many years apart will there be a causal rate? There is some loosening of the shackles on reality. Something is taking advantage of this period. Immerse yourself in reality. And before entering, that thing will use means. For example, dreaming and preaching. Let the conscious live, or the dead. Be aware of the existence of that thing. The more people are aware of that thing, the more real and powerful it is. The more parts that appear. When it appears in the real world, the greater the intention. If it is said, the mage nirvana can only resurrect the words of the surrounding Changshur. After that thing came, where will the zombies go? And where it came to life? Even those that are burned to ash can be turned into tusks. One is not a problem if you are not careful, hundreds of millions. And that's just a side problem. It's not really a battle of cause and effect. At the moment when that thing came, there will be two realities and one reality in this world. One for the fantasy of St. Lo, but no one can tell which is true, which is false. It is also said that both are true. Seekers will do it for themselves. The one who believes moves forward. So the battle of cause and effect is in addition to resisting beforehand. There are also those who refer to the Dharma. For that real result, the outbreak of the Civil War, the so-called Battle of England. It is the fate between human beings and nirvana. It is also between the seeker of the Dharma and the seeker of the Dharma. A civil war erupted over the reality of each other's aspirations. So there are some sects for the sake of what they believe in reality. It also formed a causal wartime tong. Mungju Sword Gate. It can barely be regarded as an alliance of 9 strong gates. And Penglai and Sanjin are barely counted. This is the sea and mountain who ran away from home in order to escape marriage. When I returned to the island once, it gives him some secrecy. After listening to his explanation, the 5 gods asked, so is your daughter-in-law decided? The sea and mountains are helpless. This tiger girl's brain circuit is still so strange. However, Gao Haoguang on the side. But from it, he heard the kindness of many of those who were in his eyes. The meaning of the spread of the building is given. It should be all kinds of people who make people aware of Kazuha, the first place in the existence of poets. The more people believe in its existence, the part that comes to you is stronger. That's why the world is supernatural. There are always ways to do it. Erase the concept of ordinary people's dialogue, because that's what it will lead to. It is easier for ordinary people to understand poetry, and more after erasing the concept, even if they really believe in the existence of Shurxian. After that, it will gradually become clear about the relevant awareness. Even if next time I want to think about it again, reality must also be preached from scratch. Let's talk about it. Gao Haoguang pointed to the pile of human remains in front of him and claimed to have found a clue. The 2 monster worms that attacked them earlier. It's someone who uses supernatural powers. Emerged from the remains of this person. So Fai Tsai dissected the man. No food residue was found. There's even a name that's unique to the neighborhood. Then the sea and the mountain remembered. There is indeed a small town around here. There is even an extraordinary trading area called Dongting City. The time came to the early morning of the first. The first sun drives out the darkness. Wake up the whole town, too. And in a certain tea house in this Dongting City, several seekers were deliberating on something, in order to avoid some unnecessary troubles. The woman also used a dress to isolate the voices of several people. Then they talked about the appearance of the royal appearance in this place, the temperature at which it is determined to be a causal battle. And here they came. It is to find the brave man in history, in the report to the supreme in the sect. These people are Dharma seekers from all sects. In order to investigate the matter, they form squads in groups of 3 or 5. So far, 50 squads have been dispatched. Most of them come for the reward. Unexpectedly, the distribution of jade dreams here is so thin. Tens of thousands of infected people. They don't know where to start. not to mention finding clues. Several people were a little anxious at the moment. Completely. I don't know that all their conversations have been discovered. Barlow said to the people behind him, "Sure. This is an action specifically for us." The team broke the wind and listened. Decided to give one away and seduce. With that, a drop of black blood poured out from its fingertips. Into the hands of those near and far. Black blood came to Dongting City through supernatural powers. Precise drops were placed on a passing mortal. The team instantly sensed the moisture. So they followed all the way. They saw it. This person walks into a remote image. Several people hurried to catch up. But he was given a second by Huang Liang, who had been waiting here for a long time. Lientian's sword tyrant summoned his natal supernatural powers. Suck in the remnants of the broken branches in the sky. There is no longer anything unusual here. Chiaki also used his natural supernatural power to paint skin. This supernatural ability can change the appearance of others at will, and cover up your own breath, even if it's a great supernatural person who comes here. I didn't notice anything unusual. As he spoke, Chiaki and the others turned into the previous team. The appearance of 4 people. And Yu Taishan and Barlow are a new pair of skins. On the other hand, Huang Liang. For him, who was a great supernatural person before his death. It's not hard to change your appearance. As the smoke cleared, revealed his true face before his death. A handsome student of Wenzhouzhou. The group walked out of the alley with laughter and laughter. Give yourself back, this team. Get up with a resounding name. When the Yellow King Lake is wide 7 promising melons. I suddenly heard that there was a fairy mountain on the sea. The mountains are in the void. Legend has it that it is on the easternmost side of the sea. There are 3 rafts. An island that ordinary people cannot catch with the naked eye. They are the main island of Panglai, abbot of Zuofu Island, right to Fushima Jinju. Above the fairy island, countless pavilions and palaces are also reflected in the Green Tree Pavilion. It's like a mythical fairy palace. And in the very center of this fairy island, there is a mountain and sea pavilion. It dwells the supreme lord of this jade. Panglai Island is the main seamount. Now, in front of Haishan stood a young man. I saw the light flickering beside him. A strange-looking mage appeared in the store. This is the natal power of the broken star chain. At this time, the people of Bic were at the moment when they were exerting their magical powers. Duan Xinglian threw out the stone in his hand. However, the stones that flew out were in the air in the foggy Lekin. It's like being slashed with a nuclear object. Meanwhile, the sea and mountain birds sitting on the guard of the main hall. Sudden operation. Resist. There was an attack that appeared in front of him out of thin air. About half a breath later, the Dharma body beside broken star chain slammed into its arms and snapped up. Knife. Through the cracked stone, through the mystery, straight towards the sea and mountains. On this, the sea and the mountain are just understated, stretching out 2 fingers. It made it difficult for the supernatural power that struck to move. Then came out of the mouth of this Panglai Supreme, an astonishment through the ages. Later, due to the Dick disaster, the star was broken and the sword was refined, and this skill was saluted, in order to thoroughly grasp the natal supernatural powers. After 100 million in Shanghai, the sister and brother followed Haishan to Panglai. After this period of research, the seamount can be clear. This natal supernatural power does not exist. This is what you know. The attack he inflicted was like a nightmare. Once it is recognized as a reality, stopping it will lead to the law of cause and effect. There is a trace of the same song with Wanya Shirxian. Miao Duan Xing Lian listened to the catalog of melancholy. But he asked if this supernatural power would be dangerous. However, the reply was that it was also an opportunity. After all, the 3 truths will not recognize the wrong person in the same month. At least the previous generation he himself recognized. Duan Xinglian hesitated slightly. In the end, I said yes. What happened to Patriarch Guang later? Gao Hao Guang was mentioned. The sea and the mountains looked at each other, and it was difficult to hide the emotions in their hearts. Tiantu looked to the side. When I last heard from him, it was when the first artificial satellite was launched into the sky. It's more than enough to count Daljan. At that time, he felt that he was about to fall into a big situation. Chose to disappear from everyone's view. Guess what he was thinking? The Broken Star Refining's little cannon light ancestor made himself disappear. Manufacturing is unobservable. He was between life and death. It's like Schrodinger's cat. He had to be found. Life and death are clarified. It will become a reality. Since everything is unknown at the moment, Duan Xinglian can pass the same month order. Turn this uncertain news into the best news. Influencing the past determines the future. Haishan has recognized this. Then he felt something. A few clouds of dust came out of the show, towards the window between the branches. A few people who were eavesdropping on their heads flew away. Please wait for a meeting on Saturday. Hurriedly jumped up from among the trees and began to flee in a hurry. The old man of Wushan, who was drinking happy water in the distance, saw this, laughing extraordinarily heartily. After sending away a few imps, the sea and mountains asked again about the vast light that was gone. Did you write that he and Hui Tsai went to Dongting City? What happened? Duan Xinglian hurriedly replied, according to the memory of Hao Guang's death. The Patriarch and Mr. Hai are from a coincidence. Also, after learning about the events related to the tomb, went to Dongting City. He didn't know. Is it because he once said it? The Patriarch's tomb really affected the past, but he didn't feel it at the time. A sense of crisis under the penalty of the law of cause and effect. I'm afraid the impact is insignificant, but the voice is weak. Intermittent fission. Sense a sudden drop in temperature around you. Xuanji heard the slightly cold voice of the sea and mountains burning. If there is no impact, that's a big problem. As a result, the supernatural powers were later exhausted. Daesung can't get rid of the lifesaver. It was left at that time. This is also his later limit. One of the main causes of early treatment. So, it's a good idea to use the same month again in the near future. Duan Xinglian knows the seriousness of the world. You can cast spells on your own. It can't trigger the same month order at all. And the contact on the other side. I'm afraid it's not Patriarch Haoguang himself. It's that little Li Tuan. He had doubts, too. That was the natal god group of the Haoguang Patriarch. The Patriarch at that time did wake up early. Natal prodigy. It's not a little green flower with lexicon. Is it in the corner that he can't see? What has changed? How strong is the oppression of the King of Nirvana? He is like a contradiction of countless faiths. He stands for all horrors. Peaceful and crazy. Something of sanity, despair, and hope. At this moment, San Xiaoji has gone through several tosses. Finally came to this Dongting City. The city is not big, but there is a constant flow of people on the streets. But it was as if he was talking. Something unusual is about to happen here in the near future. However, the world is always full of twists and turns. It's somewhere in the corner of this Dongting City. A girl was kneeling in front of the pharmacy owner. Abandon and plead. The boss glanced at him and was dying. A dying child. I looked at the clothes of the two. He waved his hand and sent the girl away. Gao Haoguang, who was passing by, saw this. Throw out an object and fall into the girl's back cage. It was the bounty he had received for killing the mage before. The girl was immediately aware, turning his head to look at the solution that was gradually moving away. I can't see the content clearly, but the man's back was deeply remembered by him. Sangxiati walked through the crowd, came to Dongting Street, a local extraordinary trading area. It's different from the people outside the street. It is not the seekers who can gain a foothold in this place. It is a person of dignitude and dignitaries. And just walked. San Xiaoji discovered the abnormality. There are so many seekers who walk around here. Hurrah their surprise. Subsequently, several people found a tea house in this Dongting Street. This tea house is located in an extraordinary trading area. Most of them are taken by those who supply and demand them. A place to bounties and information. As expected, The shopkeeper of the tea house really knows a thing or two. It's just that his mind is a little foggy right now. You need to point out something outside your body to keep yourself awake. The three little ones handed over a few gold coins with a resentful face. The boss immediately smiled. He also talked about the prophetic dream ritual that appeared here. The number of infected people is overwhelming. When the three little ones asked about the specific content of the dream, the shopkeeper is completely gone. His spread hand said that he wanted to add money. A few people are really angry with this goods. But after all, there is a demand for people. The ultimate tiger god. Still full of kindness, he gave an extra gold coin. After the shopkeeper accepted the gold coins, he talked about the dream he experienced. Noon 4 days ago. Seeing that no one came to the door, he lay down on the table and took a nap. As soon as I closed my eyes, I saw the golden light extinguished. Vaguely, he seemed to see a full golden moon. However, he was not allowed to react. He plunged headlong into the full moon. Immediately after the discovery of the shopkeeper, I was caught in a sea of people. Above the sea of people, the space began to crumble. From within, a drop of blood the size of a house emerged. Subsequently, the shopkeeper found himself standing above the water. Everybody, to be exact, stood above the water. The blood then droplets fall into the water. But the sea of people did not move. But they can feel it. That's when something appeared under the water. Represents terror. Peaceful and crazy. Something of sanity, despair, and hope. From a distance, it was a huge palm. The sea of people on the water is in the depths. In there. The giant rat's palm seemed to be firmly controlled. The three little ones just listened. The first thing that comes to mind is Kazuha's sight. So I asked the shopkeeper, "Can you be sure that everything is a reality?" But the shopkeeper said it was true or false, and it deteriorated in a few days. But he believed it to be true. Have an old friend. He also suffered from the law of cause and effect. After that, the shopkeeper's expression revealed the end. Claimed that this is a destiny that cannot be fought against. Just a few people talking. Suddenly, there was an additional voice in the doorway. He didn't walk in, just silently looked at Gao Haoguang among the three. Fai Tsai recognized it as Fong. The girl who knelt at the door of the pharmacy hurriedly stepped forward to ask. But I saw the girl reach out and hand over a money bag. Fai Tsai has some differences. Suddenly, the girl choked up and said that her brother had left. There is no need to pay for medicine anymore. Gao Haoguang's expression was full of complexity when he heard this. That's when it happened. Two seekers who thought highly of themselves walked into them. Looked at the girl with a look of disgust. Without saying a word, he was going to drive him out of Dongting Street. Fortunately, it was directly Gao Haoguang's 2 seasons of Viscount. Sun foot blocked. Ignoring the two who wailed in pain, he asked the girl softly, "Are there any relatives in the city?" The girl shook her head and said he didn't care. "I can live." After that, he handed the money belt to Gao Haoguang and wanted to leave. And yet at this moment, the shopkeeper walked out of the store with a notice, claiming to be hiring. But the ink on the master has not dried. Apparently just written. The girl stared blankly. Raw means that he is illiterate. But the shopkeeper smiled and said that if you can't read, you can learn. Then he predicted the front of the palace. Let the girl bury her brother alive. This is one of the few in the world of supernatural powers. A festival common to all regions. It starts on October 5th every year. A 5-day festival will be held all over the world. During these 5 days, entertainment activities are jointly funded by various major factions. In various extraordinary trading areas. All have a fun fight card. One is prepared in the station every day. Flying and flying fighting competition. The final winner of the first 4 days. It is possible to participate in the 5th day. A global conference of fighting methods. And the eventual winner of the conference. You can get a slip. And a 1-year free ticket to the Pleasure Palace. And because the fun items in the Xiaoyao Palace are more expensive, so most people will play after a year. Use that single frame down to rejuvenate themselves. The rise of the 3 little ones is chatting. only to find out. The girl who was left by the shopkeeper yesterday is 2 melons. There is something strange about the behavior. The boss with a small mouth open seemed to be saved. The eyes of the 5 ants were full of doubts. Haishin Jianba explained. Last night, the golden shopkeeper gave Ergwa a popular science about the worldview of the seeker. When it comes to the rise, he also shows his 2-handed supernatural powers. Finished. Ergwa has always been this stunned. Let's talk about it. He shouted again to the little girl who was far away. Ergwa turned back suspiciously. But I saw a rather wild paper. Crane from the sea and mountain too. Fly out of the sleeve. The little girl screamed when she saw the Parisian horse. It means that the world beyond the mountain is too scary. It turned out that Ergwa came from a village deep in the mountains. Recently, a heavy rain that had never been seen before brought mud and rocks. The village was buried. My father and brother didn't make it out. He and his brother finally got out of the mountain, but in the end, he was still the only one left. I don't know why. Looking at the girls sobbing back, Gao Haoguang's mind flashed another person in the mountains. In the girl. Then he picked up Ergwa. Said to take him out for a walk. Seeing this, the shopkeeper readily agreed. Anyway, it's a holiday today. Few people come to this tea house. The tiger god also hurried to follow. There are only seamounts. He pouted and said he still had homework. However, what responded to him was a pebble thrown by Fai Tsai. Haishin was in a hurry and threw out a large handful of stones from the show. But all of them were knocked away by Hui Zai. Ultimately, it all fell on the head of the tiger god, who was the most subordinate to the Fashing. A few people came to the conference site. They carried 2 melons. Experienced a lot. A thing that can only be discarded in the realm of seeking the Dharma. Ergwa had a lot of fun. The sadness on his face also dissipated a little. Eventually, the group came to the conference. The center's joyful fighting table. The nature of the 5 aegis from time to time. Say everything to make these few tight little points. See what Miss Bin means. Seamount. Liao put on a disdainful look of being with him, and said that this is too ostentatious. Let's keep it low-key. But when it was learned that the registration deadline was after a pillar of incense, he couldn't sit still. Hurriedly said that Haishin Chat also wanted to play. This time, the fighting method project is called the Imperial Flight. Of course, the challenger is not required to fly flexibly. After all, that's the great psychic one. To be proficient in prodigies, contestants only need to hold themselves up by the imperial law and be the first to pick up the treasure. The organizers have prepared 3 treasures for this fight, packed into 3 stone figures. Acquire the Stone Warrior. Not only can you take away the treasures inside, you can also participate in the fighting method meeting on the 5th day. As the host counts down, from the bottom of the stone gorge, clouds and mist poured out. And hold it up. In just a moment, the clouds swelled violently. It was then divided into 3. Distribute the Shirxia separately. Then the clouds began to roll up. Gradually, it converges into a ball. The name of this thing is Pyrotechnic Treasure Dao Take. Greatly weakens the perception of the prisoner. Make it impossible for the contestants to find out the location of the real hero. With the treasure rising, the fight has officially begun, although it is a fighting method. However, dancing is not allowed during the festival. Everyone competes fairly according to their skills. Gao Haoguang's natal supernatural power bleeds. Something unusual can be seen approximately. With the fireworks treasure road formed. Previously also. Said that the sea and mountain birds who didn't want to be too ostentatious took the lead. Leaping. Although dancing is not allowed in this fighting convention, but just fly on this royal law. It stumped a lot of people. Even if you are born, the sea and mountain birds in Peng Lai feel a little struggling. Fortunately, the others seem to be even more uncompetitive. Just thinking about the sea and mountain birds, he suddenly felt a sinking under his feet. Then I listened to the tiger god Chi-Chi, laughing at Xiao Hai. You're still too naive. As long as people grab you up, there will be more mana to find treasures. However, it is a coincidence. He's not alone. Wu De was angry. He scolded the man who read his beautiful legs as a thief. After that, he slapped his leg and kicked him in the face a few times. However, he was warned by the organizers because of the use of force. In the end, it was the sea and mountain bird who endured it all. The more he thought about it, the more he got up. I thought that the conference only said that it was not allowed to dance. But I didn't say you can't cheat. Let's talk about it. He swept his gaze to sit cross-legged on the eaves, watching the ashes of the play. Hui Tsai was also keenly aware of his gaze. Then Haishan said it succinctly. The message is conveyed with expressions. Where is Shirxia? Haishan wanted to win. Hui Tsai's face was embarrassed. Managed to attract the attention of the two melons. Then he twisted his face vigorously. I started to communicate with the sea and mountains. The general meaning is that I don't want to use that. Avatars do such a boring thing. I have to say that the boy has good words. However, the sea and the mountain are flashing in their eyes, showing that you have a gazebook of relativity. The encrypted call between the two. The number of letters fell in the eyes of the tiger god. He suddenly felt isolated. Chilly. It's as if friends and family, including all of humanity, are dead. The loneliness of the world is left alone. This moment, Wu Dashan felt like he was abandoned by the whole world. And the other side, the science-loving Hui Tsai Chinese style, failed to resist the temptation. I saw his eyes open suddenly. Inside the pupil of the right eye, a strange green color emerges. Just for a moment, he saw the stone man hidden in the mist, where, subsequently, he began to deliver the message as if he had suddenly become vicious. I don't understand the sea and mountains. Reach out and grab into the clouds. The tiger ant at its feet. Also at this moment let go of the hand. Right now, he feels like he has nothing to love. Let's die so lonely. Flowers are blooming and the sky is full of flowers. Who is connected with the braised incense? With this, the sea mountain bird has lost its shackles. I found Shirxia very smoothly, with Stone Man being opened. A touch of subtitles suddenly appeared. As the light dissipated, a fluffy mountain bird poop appeared in everyone's field of vision. This is one of the rewards of this project. Li Shuifu is so stupid and cute. Ant Tiger couldn't help laughing. The mood also became happy all of a sudden. The big head didn't care about it. Anyway, Lao Chuan is used to strange things. And yet at this moment, the second stone man was also found. He is a young man who is full of letters. But at the moment, his eyes when he looked at the sea and mountain birds were particularly sharp. The sea mountain bird glanced back at the man. For some reason, he always thought this man was weird. At the same time on the eaves, Gao Haoguang noticed someone approaching behind him, and the man's hand was still on the hilt. Seeing this, Yu Taishan smiled and said that he had just cheated. Gao Haoguang did not deny it. The person in front of you. It was able to appear behind him silently. It's not an ordinary person. However, Gao Haoguang didn't know. Yu Taishan originally planned to shoot directly, but when approaching, aware that there is a top in him, the breath of a great supernatural treasure, Yu Taishan was not sure to take it down in an instant. I had to stop at this moment. The Huang Liang who won the Stone Man was also produced. Came to the realm of Yu Taishan. Gao Haoguang glanced at this person. I don't know why. This handsome young man always gives him a creepy sense of oppression. But who knew that the two just glanced at him? He chose to leave. Meanwhile, Haishan, Liao, and Huda provinces also returned from Dufatai. The three little ones only looked at the two figures that were gradually moving away. The governor departed. What a weirdo. Then they continued to take the two melons with them. Admire the holy king of the fighting FA tribulation. At night, today's fighting law conference has come to an end. But the festive atmosphere. But there is no intention of calming down. The fireworks that exploded in the air. It seems to be able to illuminate the entire Dongting Street. The snowflakes that floated from the dead. It also sets off the wonderful scenery of this night. The second melon is a little spicy to watch. A line of tears slipped from the corners of his eyes. At this moment, he remembered his father and his younger brother. How happy it would be if they could see it. The group watched the little girl for a long time, until he fell into a deep sleep. Wu Dashan was afraid that Ergwa would catch a cold, so he sent him back to the inn first, and Gao Haoguang looked at the snow in front of him. 1. The memories that were buried deep in my heart came flooding back. The wineglass is too shallow. You can't get in, the day is long, and the alley is too short. I can't walk with gray hair. It's not that a teenager can't keep a savior. It's that the years have wasted people's hearts. At this moment, although the moon is already hanging high, but Dongting Street is still brightly lit. Even that sudden light snow, none of them can hide the festive atmosphere. Gao Hao watched and watched, but he didn't see the streets. It's the street outside that it's under the world. The life of ordinary people is varied, with the leisure of the Dharma students. Memories that were once vague have also become clearer. Even when I was 2 or 3 years old, I can dig a little out of the drawer. Not to mention 14 then. I remember going back to my hometown during the Spring Festival that year. Gao Haoguang was as usual, passing by the street corner of a village. He saw a bazaar, but I was surprised to find out. The butcher's stalls there are not only pigs and cows. There's even human flesh. However, according to Gao Haoguang, there is nothing related to the rituals here. He'd heard it before. There are various refugee roads on this road every year. Some of them are because of the war. Some of them were because of famine. Back then, the price of pork there is almost 90 mosquitoes. Naturally, refugees can't afford it. But the human flesh there only costs more than 20 yuan. That's tailor-made food for refugees. Later, Gao Haoguang learned from the investigation the source of human flesh here. It's also from the previous wave. Refugees who were intercepted by them. So Gao Haoguang smashed the bazaar. However, he didn't use supernatural powers. There was no murder either. At most, it is to cut off children and grandchildren and make them powerless for life. Murderous little disability. Naturally, there were no catchers who alarmed the supernatural world, but it ushered in the local catch. They are the protectors of this market. On weekdays, some protection fees are also charged. When a butcher intercepts a refugee, they are also stationed in it to cover up the facts. That headed the headhunting. He is a disabled person who has lost his ancestral arm, but there are traces of human butchers. I can't help but say that I want to cut Gao Haoguang first and then play. But no matter how vicious they are in their daily lives, after all, it's just a bunch of ordinary people who are damaged. Probably the opponent of the prisoner. But also because of the high consumption of this move, attracted more officers and soldiers to encircle and suppress him. In order to avoid the trouble expanding, he decided to evacuate first. However, I noticed that after I turned around, the catcher stared at his back and forgot for a long time. Finally, it seems that something is remembered. His eyes slowly turned from shock to shame. At that time, he was in Gao Haoguang's eyes. Looks like a tall figure, but it looks so short and obscene. After that, Fai Tsai also said that he had only taken it out of the drawer recently. About his memories when he was 2 or 3 years old, I vaguely remember. That year, the little gray cub snuck out of the house, was abducted by 2 traffickers on the road. At that time, he did not have the ability to think in complexity, but there are still vague notes on a few things. That's why I'll know it in the near future. At that time, I was sold to that market. The kind that is put together with pigs and cows. Even with children. Those human butchers will not show the slightest mercy. And even more ridiculous. At that time, the piglets were smaller than humans. It's much more precious. Maybe it's because I haven't eaten for a long time. At that time, the little gray boy kept crying. The impatient butchers saw it and immediately used their knives. That's when it happened. There was a loud congratulatory cry from the crowd in Yuden. It was a living person. Then I saw one. Young men and women in rags stepped out. This is a refugee. Same as other refugees. He's a bone beast. It seems that he will not live for a few days. And unlike other refugees, the man looked at him like a thing. It's like a hero in the interpretation. He was alone. What to argue with those butchers of human flesh? At that time, Xiao Huizai, who was not afraid of the Dharma body, did not hear it. Don't even care. Then the young man agreed. Walk towards Xiao Huizai. He said in a calm tone that the deal was done. I'll take you away later. As for whether they can survive, it's up to your family to find the neighborhood. Then he also showed a smile to Xiao Huizai. At that time, Fai Tsai still remembered. I don't know what's going on. I don't know the meaning of the word transaction. Until not long ago, together with the ingredients. Know the youth of that time. Fantasized with one of his left arms. His brow is furrowed this year. But there was no sound from beginning to end. But the crowd of onlookers at that time was deeply shocked, including the nobles in the ox cart. This is an elderly local official. He admired the youth. I also want to take him to the county cliff to stop the bleeding. At last, in the county office, I met Huizai's parents who were reporting the crime. Youth. There was no information about that arm. Just congratulate Xiao Huizai on finally being able to go home. At that time, Huizai may not have been able to think in a complex way. But the mood at that time can be together now. In today's words, the scrawny young man who had lost his avoidance. It's so tall and mighty. The body is grander than the sun. However, Fai Tsai met a benefactor when he was 2 years old. It's the same person he hit when he was 14 years old. The world is impermanent. Among the dragon-slaying boys, he became an evil dragon. The will can be strong or extremely fragile. He had no chance of winning in the infinite years. But it has the power to transcend time. Now, after Gao Haoguang finished telling the story of the young man, he has also been emotionally moved for only 10 years. But it is enough to drive the same person to two extremes. Dreams of remembering when I was young. After all, it can't compete with the reluctance in life. Not to mention being in a different position. People who see different sights. Subsequently, Haishan Liang said that he was in a tea house somewhere. An allusion to snow that I heard. That year, it snowed heavily in Tangchonga. In a tavern, a poet won a sentence, and the snow fell one after another. A reader who passed the steel science examination answered, "It must be Royal Ricky. A cotton coat seller is in the next 3 years." A beggar outside the tavern picked up the last sentence. "Fuck your shit." A poem seems to make sense. But he has exhausted all kinds of life. However, Gao Haoguang felt that this point was ignored. There should be another group that has been forgotten by the world. The seeker derives wealth from the ordinary world. The power and even the supernatural powers are far greater than the giving. And the so-called battle mage. Guarding ordinary people is also because of the union between Dharma seekers. It is also difficult to give birth to a new generation of Dharma seekers. A new generation of Dharma seekers. Most of them are born by ordinary parents. Then look at the qualifications. Absorb it into your own team. Be a part of yourself. Most of the seekers. I never really thought of ordinary people as my kind. Haishan listened to it, looked sideways, and forgot Gao Haoguang's glance. Whisper what you want to do. Gao Haoguang looked at the lights of thousands of homes under his feet. Ponder for a long time. Eventually, he wanted a rope. Tie you and me and them all together. Haishan listened. Said that the little brother Haoguang is still too young. But Gao Haoguang said that he liked this young man very much. He wanted to die. That's still so young. Haishan knows how difficult this road is. But he felt that at least the little brother Haoguang would definitely wait. Gao Haoguang listened. Leaned down. He asked with interest why he was so sure. The sea and the mountains are holding me blind. The same ideals, one negative and one positive. Great at the same time. Somewhere tens of thousands of miles away. On the top of the mountain. A quaint building is hidden in a sea of clouds. This place is the Oriental Conference State of the Four Worlds. He was a showcaser of the top methods at the time. He is entering this place as a primordial spirit. Discussing the dream of the jade. One of the primordial gods spoke. Trace the source through clues. The source of the dream of jade was spread all over the Qing kingdom. Some even come from abroad. However, it is known through his own divination. The people who are most likely to speak in the Huguang area. She is the Lord of Jishan, the Lady of the Valley. Because the patriarch has the power of cause and effect. So the people of Jishanmen are more or less all. Can use some simple cause and effect techniques. The Lord of Penglai, Hai Zhengfeng, listens to it. Ask about the temperature that leads to the jade dream. How it works. There are some differences from the methods recorded in the past. The Lord of Laozhan on the side saw this. It's too unworldly to complain about Penglai. Unexpectedly, Wu Mingzi, the owner of the Thousand Machines Museum, said. He was also interested in this question. See this Lord of the Nine Swords Gate. The burning Taoist sighed helplessly. Began to reintroduce the temperature to the two of them. I saw him raise his hand and slash in front of him. To the spell molding. Gradually, it evolved into a picture. Burned to the moment. A slightly vicissitudes of life also sounded. This temperature comes from the summons of the poet. Initially, it was supposed to be deposited into a few French bodies. It is then passed directly to Dharma seekers and mortals. We call them dreamers. But it is not known yet. What medium is this temperature propagating? All infected individuals are exposed to raw temperature. Direct infection. It should be the dreamer himself. The only way to figure out this is to catch the dream herald. Infected people will enter on the day they are infected. Prophetic dreams are interesting. The scene that everyone dreams about is almost the same though. But there is a subtle difference. The number of people who appear in the dream varies. Some people dream of that hugeness. There were several thousand people on the water. Some people dream of millions there. And even more. The scene in the dream is uncertain. Probably only the moment that comes beforehand. To be sure. And the dream that is determined will be true. The reality of nameless is a little depressing. This dog thing is really cunning. For now, we can only try to stop the temperature from spreading. Don't let his most prophetic dreams come true. The burning Taoist looked at him with a faint expression. Chunshang said that he would find and destroy Mingzha. You can stop the spread. Caused Pan Nanjun to sleep for thousands of years with serious injuries. And execute a handful out of nowhere. The nameless flying sword that was slashed was in the Oriental venue at this moment. After listening to the Fon Doc. After talking about the foreknowledge of dreams. The Lord of Latte Garden beside him thinks. In fact, you don't have to worry too much about the appearance of the palace this time. After all, there are only a limited number of seekers. Even if all of your colleagues really get hit. The controversy over the strength of the provisional prefecture is also limited. As long as it is not covered by trees. Huge mortals remember that scene. Then this battle of cause and effect is not enough. Just as this man spoke, the thieves immediately found Wu Yuanjin, who asked the first meeting. Always keep an eye on yourself. So he opened his mouth and asked you what you had given you a horn. 5 Yuan really heard Ba Qing laugh a few times. Xin immediately opened his mouth and said, Brother Feng Dark. Your disciple abandoned my disciple in the realm of Lao Tzu. I haven't given an explanation yet, but I heard the burning Taoist say it without being salty or light. Otherwise, Feng would have gone and asked the first meeting in person now. It's not a loss. After that, he didn't hide the killing intent in his eyes at all. He glanced coldly at the lord of the first meeting. 5 Yuan really sees this. Shanshan laughed dryly. It means that this sentence is sufficient. However, after the end of the meeting, his angry roar spread throughout the house. Ask first. Von Dock sitting on the stage made him particularly unhappy. But that man was the master of the strongest Dharma at that time. After that, Wu Yuanjin took out a rock candy from the show. Reward yourself for your ability to bend and stretch. Actually, it's better than being angry. Right now, he was more curious. The desert that was dug out by the Nine Swords Gate. He also went to investigate afterwards. Although the clues are all erased. But that place. But it reminded him of his dead master. A secret letter that was mentioned. But it was there before the creation of the Ask First Society. Say that. 1,000 years ago, there was a great war in the region. And the two sides of the battle. On one side is the commander of the Wu Jin army. Killed a number of peerless mages of great supernatural powers. On the one hand, this person has been dead for many years. But the nameless flying sword with supernatural powers still in operation. After an unknown number of traffics, the flying sword finally froze the mage through. He was left with an incurable wound on his chest. The mouth then dissipated together with the predator. All have become the dust of history. So Wu Yuanjin concluded. The 8 achievements of the 9 Swords Gate are for the stubborn mage, or that nameless flying sword. Before, he thought it was useless for him. So I didn't care. But right now, since the 9 Realms Gate wants to, then he must have to fight. Let's talk about it. So he decided to go to the cemetery again to take a closer look. It's time to come in the early morning of another day. A squad of prisoners in various parts of the Qing dynasty. At the same time, he was summoned for summons. And the message is out. It is responsible for the investigation. The 15th squad in the Dongting Lake area. They claim to have found the suspect. May possess the original form of temperature. So ask the squads to do as fast as possible. Find the appropriate facility. Give them assistance.